All right, today we're going to be looking into the Chroma console by Hologram. I've had this guitar pedal for a very long time, a few months actually. It's taken me a long time to make a video on this because I don't want to receive it, unbox it, film it, and just talk about it. This Chroma console goes very deep, so I really want to understand, really find how I'm going to use it within my signal flow or my signal chain here on my setup. Chroma console, it's a lot of things in one box. It's not just a saturation or distortion guitar pedal. There's a lot going on within this box. Thankfully, I did take my time and I really found its place within this signal chain. If you do want more information on this Chroma console, I will leave a link down in the description of this video where you guys can find where to purchase and also dive deeper into what it has to offer. All right, so I want to go over the signal chain setup with this Chroma console. As you see, the MPC is the centerpiece of my studio. Everything I do is within this box right here. However, this box does have a very clear sound to it. I've always talked about whatever I sample into the MPC is exactly what comes out of the MPC. Having something like the SP1200, that's not the case with that sampler. What I sample into the 1200 and I play back that sample, it sounds completely different. There's a certain sound that you might like or you might dislike. Now, if I want to add character to my overall mix of this MPC, I could use something like this Chroma console, which if I add this on this master signal chain and send my entire mix out of outputs 1 and 2 into the inputs 1 and 2, I'm able to hit it with some of these character settings or texture settings, adjust the amount of effect that I want where I feel it's desirable. And then once I'm happy with that signal, the signal will come out of the Chroma console into my interface and I'll be able to print my mix just the way I want it with the sound of the Chroma console. That is not the only way you would use it. There's many different setups, but this is the setup that I've been gravitating towards the most. You can also use this as an effects pedal, sending out individual samples by itself just to touch it up with some cool reverb or delays. That's probably going to be a whole different video because that's an awesome setup. But that's an alternative. The most effective setup that I've found is the way I'm describing it. So let's go ahead and listen to something that I have right here. At the moment, when I'm starting my beats, I don't have anything engaged. I'm just getting signal coming out, going into this guitar pedal with none of these effects turned on. It's just clean signal. What I like to do is just build my beat, get an idea. Once I have my sample and my drums, I have an idea already coming together. That's when I like to go into the Chroma console and start engaging some of these filters or effects. And I'm starting to listen to the blend of the texture that I'm getting here with my idea or my sequence. All right, so right here we have an idea. This sounds great. I'm happy with the drums, the way the sample came together. It's a well put together sequence. This is where I then come over to the Chroma console and I want to just play around with some of these textures and see what sounds good with this sequence that I have. Now, the very first step when it comes down to the effects, and there's the drive, there's squash, filter, cassette. Before I get into any of that, the first question that I always have is, where is my input signal, right? I always like to set up my input to see how hot I'm hitting this guitar pedal because that's going to determine on how the squash will react, how this audio is being triggered. So I could not find anywhere. I'm like, where is the input knob right here? That's where I have to start with any guitar pedal or any preamp. Well, this has a very different approach on how we adjust our input signal. The way I do it is by using the automatic calibration on this unit. And the way I'll do that with this unit is I'll hit play on my sequence as it's coming into the Chroma console. I hold down these these two knobs and I will see these colors change. As they change, I let go of it. It just gets a reading of the signal coming into the Chroma console, and automatically it will calibrate your gain that is receiving. Let's go ahead and do that. Awesome. So it already got the signal. If I had this all the way full blast, it would have adjusted that input signal right here and brought it down. It does it automatically. It's a little weird to me. It took me some time to understand it because it's just not something that I'm used to. Or if you want to do it manually, as we are in calibration mode, we can use A, B, C, or D inputs to make it either low input, medium, high, or very high if you want to go with something a bit more aggressive. I like to just do it automatically. That's first step. Now, second step is how all these knobs work. We got character section right here. We have the movement section right here. We have diffusion and we have texture. And finally, we have our mix, which will allow us to adjust the mix from wet to dry. If you want to go for parallel compression or something 50-50, cool, you can go ahead and do that right there. Now, you'll notice that each individual knob has a different function. This is the tilt, the rate, and the time. And right at the bottom, it has a secondary function. The sensitivity of the tilt, the drift of the drive, and also the drift of the time. I'll explain a little bit what those are and how you would use that. Now, I'm not gonna go over each individual function right here. This will take me a very long time, but I wanna just go over my favorite settings to send my overall mix. And it's going to be in these two sections right here, the character and the texture. These two right here, I believe right here in this rate, it's going to affect more of a tremolo, your phaser, vibrato. It actually does give a really cool effect to samples if you're just trying to warp some samples and make it sound like a vinyl record. This is actually really fun, and you can get some very interesting sound designing weird sound combinations out of that. Diffusion is going to be more like of reverbs or delays. You're going to hear some type of time-based effects. Now, I'm not going to get into these as much. I might do a separate video on that, but let's go over this tilt and character section. This tilt knob will shift the tonal character of each effect that you select. The amount, this will control the amount of the selected effect that you have engaged. Now, this has a secondary button which says effect volume. It's just how hot do you want to hit that effect that you are selecting. So if you don't want to drive your signal too much, when you go into your secondary knob, you could bring this down to the left so it's not as aggressive. But if you want to crank it up and drive your signal on your secondary button, you can crank it all the way up to drive the signal. I'll show you how I do that in a bit. Same thing over here with this texture side. You got the amount of texture you want to add and then the effect volume. All right, let's go ahead and have fun. I'm going to engage some of my favorite ones and you'll be able to hear the difference of what this Chroma console is going to do. My two favorite character and texture settings is going to be this drive setting, which is in red. By the way, how you filter between these different settings is you click this, you see how it's red, and the first option is also red. It says drive. If you want to go to sweeten, you click it again. Now it's yellow, which is corresponding to sweeten, and then fuzz, howl, and swell. And if you want to turn it off, you hit it again and it's turned off. I like to go into drive and it just drives my signal into this guitar pedal. Very nice. Now it's very aggressive as well. So I like to bring in the amount of signal hitting that drive very low. How I jump into the secondary knob to adjust that input is I hold these two down, A and B, and now I'm able to tap into the amount that is going to receive to that setting. I like to have this very low because it is aggressive. You'll hear how that sounds right now. I'm gonna hit play on the beat with it turned off, and then I'll engage it and you'll be able to hear the difference. Awesome. I already noticed a difference. Let me bypass it and so you could hear it. It took me a while to really understand the workflow of this, and that's why it took me a very long time to even film this video. But once you find your sweet spot, you can just set it and forget it. When I come into the studio, I just engage these two and I'm already good to go. It sounds good in all my beats, and I like the tonal color that it gives my overall mix. You guys can hear some of these other settings if I hit play. But I like this drive setting right here. Now, going into texture, they have this first one is this filter setting. Actually, let me go to the first one. It's just a filter, either high pass or low pass. Again, this filter can work really well if you want to just, right now I'm doing the whole entire mix, so I don't want to use it. But let's say I just have a kick, or let's say I just have a snare from a record and I want to filter out some high end or some low end. You could really enhance your sound design using some of these effects. It's a lot of effects in one guitar pedal. So it's useful when you're running signal tracks to this. But since I'm not doing that, I like to go to the squash. This squash is like a compressor. It compresses the whole entire signal. I don't know how this works. I don't know actually the ratios. I know they have that in the manual on, is it a 4-to-1, 2-to-1? I don't know the ratios, but it sounds awesome and it's very aggressive. So I have to be very gentle on how hard I hit this compressor. I'm gonna turn it off, hit play, engage it, and then I'll start bringing up the amount. Keep in mind, I work in the box right here. I don't really mix in Pro Tools or in Ableton. I don't go that far. This is gonna be awesome for those that are mainly just trying to stay within this box. You do your mix right here with levels, and then you add some compression, a little bit of drive, and it just wakes up your beat. It almost gives it like a rough master. And to me, it kind of sounds finished. Again, maybe it could be a rough master even before I go into the DAW. This will stay, as you guys notice on most of my videos, I have my SP404, and then I have my MPC, and then I will bring in the Chroma console. As of lately, I've gotten rid of I still have my 404, but I've been just using the MPC with the Chroma console because the SP404, I would mainly use it to write effects like the repeat, the glitch, the tape stop. It also has a compressor. It also has something similar to this, which sounds awesome. It does sound great, but I like the sound of this Chroma console. All right, so these are my two favorite settings, the drive and the squash. But you can also, I'll let you hear the cassette, the broken, interference, and we already heard the filter. So let's go ahead and hit play and I'll bang through some of these so you could hear it. All right, so you kind of get an idea. Again, each individual texture settings, you can adjust how much you drive into those effects, which I'm not doing right here. I just want to bang through some of them. I'm using it right now as a master bus compressor. But if you want to use this to run individual tracks, like let's say our sample, if I solo the sample, I can really start getting some textures out of this sample, going into the movement section, the fusion, even going into the cassette. You start blending stuff together. I usually sample from vinyl, but if you're sampling from iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, and the sample sounds a little too clean for your liking, this is pretty fun. Let me see if I can get some texture going on this sample using some of these. Add some cassette. And I'm gonna go into the movement. I'm on vibrato. It's the rates. The amount. Let's go into the diffusion. Oh man, all right. I don't want to go too deep into this side, but you could definitely just run your bass line, your lead, synth, or anything. As a matter of fact, for synthesizer sounds great. I know the MPC has plug-in instruments, and sometimes these plug-in instruments, to me, I don't really use them as much. They sound too clean. I use samples and they're grimy, they're dirty, and then when I try to add plug-in instrument from Akai that sounds very clean and transparent, it just doesn't blend well. So now what I've been doing, again, we'll do this on another video, is I'll run that synth or that plug-in instrument through Chroma console, and I start adding some vibrato, some cassette, some squash, a little bit of space, and it starts to make that clean sounding signal almost blends as if it was also part of the record. All right, guys, man, that's a lot of talking in this video. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you guys got any questions on it, let me know down in the comments. This Chroma console is married to my MPC. As of the last few months, I haven't really talked about it. You guys might have been seeing it on the corner of my videos, but I've been using it for the past few months. It's not just me trying to film a video and saying goodbye to it. This is definitely something that I'm gonna keep. You guys have seen me for years. If you've been following me for that long, this SP404 has always been next to my MPC because I love this 404. I always talk about how this is one of the samplers that I might not sell because it's cheap, reliable, and it packs a lot of heat. You could do a lot with this. But sound-wise, I'm liking this Chroma console. I really like how this is sounding. I'm not saying goodbye to this. I'm still probably gonna use it later, but this is an awesome setup. Very simple, not a lot going on, and it has a lot of variety if you want to use it for other things. Again, if you guys want more information on Chroma console, go down in the link of this video. You guys will find more information. As of right now, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch y'all on our next one. Peace.